Hi, everybody. Adrian Fuentes here. Did you know that the Democrats of Greater Tucson has a website, thedgt.org, and if you subscribe, it's only 20 bucks. You can support this great weekly communication where folks get together. Sometimes there's candidates, sometimes folks like me pop on to help understand what's going on in the world. The Democrats of Greater Tucson, thedgt.org. Join up today.
Laura Conover is the current Pima County attorney, a lifelong Democrat and Tucsonan. She was elected in 2020 at the peak of the COVID pandemic, and also crime spiked as a cause. In her first term, she led her office to clear the existing homicide case backlog, reestablish the office's fraud unit to protect our community from financial scams and crime, ended the practice of discretionarily charging minors as adults, stopped seeking the death penalty within her jurisdiction, improved office morale by securing the first agency-wide pay raise since 1997, and helped partner to bring down the homicide and robbery rates by 36% and 39% respectively from 2 years ago, outperforming the rest of the state and nation. Public service is a family endeavor for Laura and her family. Her brother became a police officer and now runs a highly specialized non-uniform mental health team within Tucson Police Department. Before her time in office, Laura was an experienced criminal trial attorney who used her position to advocate for the rights of the poor, to advocate for victims, and to help train and mentor the next generation of attorneys tasked with keeping our community safe and sound. Let's give a warm Democrats of Greater Tucson to Laura Conover.
Yay. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I know all of you so well, so I'm going to really give you a hot off the press about what we're up to. We're extremely busy in this season, and I want to let you know what we're up to both inside and outside the office. And then, as always, remember, it's ask me anything, and I really do mean that. You can ask me anything, and I'm happy to take your questions. So, as many of you know, almost every Monday is this extraordinary rich think tank that we call the Homicide Panel, as we continue to leave behind a significant backlog of cases that we inherited and then from COVID, and working our way through to bring resolution to victims of crime. So that's almost every Monday, except today. Today has been the best Monday ever, because for the third time in my administration, I am signing letters for significant pay raises for attorneys. It's now my third opportunity to do so. I love signing those letters. We are working so hard on recruitment and retention, and we had a long ways to go, right? I couldn't just raise pennies and nickels for them. We hadn't had an agency-wide pay increase since 1997 when I arrived. And so we had a long ways to go. And I'm thrilled that we're working on that and growing stronger by the day. Also, internally, obviously, we are deep into conversations with our litigation partners on our reproductive health case, the Attorney General's office, Planned Parenthood. And then we had actually brought in the Public Rights Project, which are national legal experts on this issue. And they had led the charge 6 months earlier ahead of us with the Michigan model that was very successful. A similar strategy that we employed here, that despite litigation ongoing, we could keep reproductive health care going here, at least in Arizona, without interruption for the last 2.5 years. And it's still there today. We're going to return back to the trial level now. So we know we have protection until June 8, and we're going to continue to litigate and work on this, while also obviously externally making sure we cross the finish line and we're on the ballot in November with our reproductive health initiative. So that's kind of what's going on internally, externally, working very, very hard. as a solid partner on that front regarding the initiative, and being as present and as supportive as I can be for all Democrats across our region. It's not only my race. I can't be totally myopic, even though I'm in a very tough and quite ugly primary, unfortunately. I'm going to continue fighting for the causes and the candidates that are so important to all of us, including flipping the legislature. So to that end, I think I counted 11 events this past weekend, because we've got to do the groundwork that's required to cross the finish line. And part of that was a nomination that I had accepted, and the Biden-Harris team had cleared me and supported my nomination. And then I was elected Saturday morning. I still can't quite believe it. I was elected Saturday morning by Democrats across Congressional District 7 to be a delegate at the Democratic National Convention, because this is how important it is to me. Thank you. I know it's like mind-blowing and historic. And I was so thrilled to sit our 10, many of you know we have a lovely 10-year-old boy, and to sit him down and to explain the delegate system and how it all works, and that we could participate in our democracy and our government in this way and carry forward the voices of all of you to the Democratic National Convention. And then I'll get to really, really geek out, as you know I love to do, on the committees regarding the platform, right? The national platform, and all that we can bring to the table. Voices on immigration, criminal justice, reproductive health, obviously, from our vantage point the last 3.5 years. So incredibly thrilled and honored. And obviously, I think overall, it's a really important time for me to continue to be able to share that I'm a lifelong Tucsonan, that I'm a lifelong Democrat, that my core values are your core values, because it couldn't be more important in 2024. It's all the core values that our parents and grandparents, and including some of you on this Zoom right now, fought so hard for and litigated. And I'm so honored that you are willing to stand by me to relitigate it all over again, despite what has to be extraordinary frustration on reproductive health and on safe and fair elections. The other thing I'm doing internally, the big update from last weekend, is I spent 6 hours with local, state, and federal legal experts and law enforcement experts pre-planning to make sure that the right to vote will be safe, and to develop a zero tolerance policy against voter intimidation. I certainly didn't think that this is how I would be spending my time as county attorney, and the stakes could not possibly be higher. But with me, you've got one heck of a hard and sincere worker who won't stop until the county decides in 3 months and 8 days at the polls, and sooner than that, right, with mail-in ballots. So I think I'm going to stop there. There's so much, the breadth and depth of the obligations and responsibilities of the job are vast, and we could go on and on. But I really would like to hear, I assume we're taking questions, and I'd really love to hear from you about what your concerns are and what you'd like to ask me, if possible.
Let's see. I see Gail has a question for you.
You raised the issue about election safety, and I'm hearing about the Republicans, and particularly Mr. Trump, trying to raise hundreds of thousands of Republicans to look at every piece of elections, going into polling booths and watching drop-off places. And what's your plan? What are we doing?
Well, Gail, I'll tell you that it was a priceless opportunity to be with the actual legal team that litigated in Phoenix. If you'll recall, some gentlemen showed up in full camo and bandanas in Maricopa County with assault rifles or long guns. And, you know, these are not casual or unprepared people, right? So they're standing exactly 76 feet instead of 75 feet away from the pole. And that's a very tough case to litigate, right? Because you're up against first, you know, if they're engaging in lawful activity, you're up against, you know, strong First Amendment defenses. And that legal team was brilliant in the affidavits and the live witness testimony of people who testified to how intimidated they were trying to walk into that polling place to simply vote, to exercise their constitutional right to vote. And that legal team won an injunction prohibiting the activity, which was not an easy win. So to be, you know, 6 months ahead of November and to be pre-planning and collaborating and to have those strong relationships with all levels of law enforcement, with my county recorder, with my elections director, with the Attorney General's office, so that we are prepared for exactly what they intend to do, and we can go right into generally federal court to prohibit that kind of voter intimidation.
Larry Bodine has a question for you.
Laura, I don't know if you're aware, but I did some research and I discovered that your primary opponent is actually a Republican. He ran for county attorney way back in 2012 as a Republican and only switched to voting for the Democratic Party out of convenience 2 years ago. I checked out his finance report, and all of his major donors are right-wing, anti-vaxxer, pro-Trump Republicans. And I wonder what your thoughts are about having a Republican running against you in the Democratic primary.
Larry, I certainly understand the concern wholesale. I do want to clarify that from what I've seen or reported, he may have changed to be an independent for a longer period of time. But then, yes, I think the Democratic change came in order to run here. But I do want to make clear, I think he's lawfully running. I don't want to cast any aspersions. I think he's properly registered as a Democrat now to be able to lawfully run. So I don't have those concerns. The financials were really surprising. It's not what we see for a Democratic candidate or what we would ever see or what we would expect. And it also has to be taken extremely seriously. I mean, he raised a lot of money very quickly. And I need to be, this is why I've been working so hard since October. This is why I'm taking it so very, very seriously. I certainly want the voters to have all the facts to make the right choice. And I want to make clear that, because what's more important than ever changing party registrations or his financials is simply that he has suggested that he wants to go back 4 years ago, hire back everyone who left, and to go back to that time and place, which I think is when he left the country. And I am suggesting that we should continue forward, that we are making extraordinary progress on health and safety in this community, that we are coming out of COVID more successfully and faster and better on violent crime and better on crime in general than most places in the state and nation. And so that's what I'm going to try to focus on, is that we can either go back or we can continue to move together forwards. And that's what I'm going to continue to share.
Okay, Paul Stapleton Smith has his hand up. Paul, unmute yourself. You're good to go.
Thank you. And Sister Laura Conover, congratulations on your election this weekend.
Thank
I
you.
watched the whole thing, hours, and grateful for everybody on this call who was a part of that election. And we have more delegates to send with you. And if I may, and this is, Ms. Conover, this is a somewhat complicated question, so don't feel like I'm looking at approximations. So three things, and it goes to what we don't know but should know about this office, which right, because you've taught me over the years how much more this office does. So here it is. The clearance rate for homicides, the clearance rates for property crimes, and if you would, because the civil part of this job is so vast, would you describe the scale of the economic and white collar crimes, if you will? So see how I did that?
Okay.
Are we better off today than we were before? So those are the two sort of buckets. And if I may, recidivism, because as Democrats, these are our fundamental concerns. And I understand you can use approximations because I'm asking you for what was it, what is it now, where are we going on homicide clearance rates and property crimes, economic crimes, and then again, recidivism. So thank you so much for the service that you provide to us, honestly. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. That was like 6 things, but I'm going to hit them. I'm going to hit them. Let's start at the macro level. You're absolutely right. I think if the last 4 years have shown anything, the civil law firm, the civil division within the Pima County Attorney's Office is critical to the health of the county. And it's probably the civil division that each one of you, it touches your life almost every single day. I can't really overstate it. They are the legal attorney, the legal representative for every single county department. They're the legal advisor to the Board of Supervisors, the county administrator. That role that I fill and that they fill is a huge savings to the county, right? We protect the county, we reduce liability, we keep the county humming along. We approve and sign off of every single contract, so it's endless. Now, when we go to economic crime, what's amazing is we've got a couple of very serious brainiacs with, fraud, forensic backgrounds in civil. We've got a couple more in criminal. I love it when they connect together. We built the first fraud unit in over a decade, a dedicated fraud unit. By their year anniversary, we hit $1 million in restitution, which is huge because these are small numbers that make a huge impact on families, right? You get $300, $500 back for a laborer, and then they can pay that month's rent and they don't get evicted. I mean, so the ripple effects are huge. When it comes to violent crime, one thing I want to make clear is 2020 was just devastating across the nation, right? And this county was no different. I can't imagine how the office was handling things in 2020. When we came in, we had 144 homicides going back to 2017 that needed resolution. We had picked up a record number in 2020. We picked up another record in 21. So it's amazing that we cleared the backlog by meeting every Monday. Our police chief is righteously communicating out there that we have turned the tide on violent crime, that we're in a downward spike. We should be advertising that, because that's also pro-economy. We should be advertising how well we're doing, that we're recovering better than the rest of the state and the nation, and you should come here and invest, that it's safe to do so. Now, I want to brag that it's not that we're not getting the homicides, because TPD has an 89% clearance rate. And yes, that is like nationwide record level stuff. It's incredible, the rich evidence that they bring to us. When it comes to property, I am very concerned that we've got a fatigue in calling and reporting. So I meet with neighborhood associations once or twice a week. I try to lift up the message, you've got to keep calling and reporting. If you don't report, TPD and the sheriffs never know what happened, and I sure as heck can't open a file. You know, what doesn't come to me can't get prosecuted. And I'm very alarmed about that, because we've been as high as 90% on charging organized retail theft and related crimes. And what that tells me is I'm only seeing about half of what's out there. It's not getting reported anymore. There's a real fatigue on that. And the problem with not reporting is that call loads drive budgets. So when TPD says we need more staff, but the call load doesn't support that, it undermines their efforts. So we need people to call to continue to drive budgets. All right, long answer, but it was like a 6-part question.
That was, if I may, Mr. Chair, thank you so much for that. On the notion of recidivism, because we're not just trying to put our fingers in the dike as Democrats, we're looking at systemic solutions, to be clear. What is going on with recidivism, and how is it that the county attorney affects that? And forgive me, Mr. Chair, for filibustering on the questions. I apologize, Joe.
Well,
No,
you did it with a smile, Paul, so that's cool.
no, and you're absolutely right. Like, how did I leave the most important one? Because that's exactly what we came in here to do 4 years ago. We asked ourselves the question that if we continue to break the felony conviction rate every single year, in 2019, a third of those record-breaking 7,500 felony convictions was simple drug possession or even just paraphernalia. You are labeling people a felon for life. You're undermining the economy. People can't come back out and get employed or housed, and we're dooming ourselves to this horrible, vicious cycle. Everything we do now at the People's Office is geared towards prevention and interrupting and disrupting that cycle. We have our first pre-charge drug court, where we are trying to give people treatment so that they don't get the felony conviction. We are diverting more than we ever have. We are putting people into treatment. We are piloting a situation now where we are trying to go to the CRC secured hospital instead of the jail for the most high utilizer list. We can say frequent flyers, friendly faces. When they have as many as 30 or 40 police contacts or jail bookings in a month, we are getting nowhere with our limited resources. And so we're looking at a pilot right now and starting to get them into the hospital to see if we can't break those cycles. We are very, very forward looking.
Okay, Bridget, you have a question.
Yes.
I am suggesting that it might really be a good idea for DGT to ask Mike Jetty to also speak to the group so that we can hear from both candidates who are running for this very important position in our community.
Mike has been here.
I thought he's already been here. Yep.
He attended a salon in an evening, which was several months ago, but I'm quite sure he did not attend a Monday noontime event, did he?
He did, in fact.
Right, he did. He what?
He did, yeah. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can see his appearance there.
Yeah, Bridget, that's important. Thank you so much. Yeah, we definitely want to, he and I have very, very different messages. So it's very important for people to hear the distinct choice.
First of all, before I ask my question, I'm going to apologize on multiple levels. First of all, I'm relatively new to Arizona and to Pima County. Therefore, I don't understand. There's a lot of things I don't understand, and I'm not that familiar yet with your record. And everything I know is kind of on a headlines level, if you will. The one thing that obviously is controversial. Oh, I also apologize. I came in late to the meeting. You may have already answered this. You may have answered it and I didn't understand your answer. So feel free to say, shut up, and I've already answered it.
No, there's no wrong questions. There's no wrong questions.
But it has to do with the ethical allegations. And again, my familiarity is only a headlines level familiarity. And I wondered if you could explain that and explain your where you are on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate I appreciate the question, Bill. For those of us who've been here during my term, there is a gentleman from the previous administration who has spent, reportedly almost every single day in constant contact with the office, with public records requests and lawsuits, making it as hard for us to function as humanly possible. And one of the many tactics is he filed 22 allegations with the state bar. It's actually the third time the former administration has filed allegations against me, and which was sad for me because I'd gone my entire career without a single report, and it felt political to me. There were no findings against me on any of the 22 allegations that he brought up. But the bar thought that back in 2019 as a candidate, I should have been a little bit more clear on a Facebook comment from a constituent who asked a question and I answered the question. And I am a lifelong learner. I am sure as heck not perfect. I'm clearly held to a different standard now as a candidate, as an elected official. And I was happy to learn. And so they offered for me to watch a recorded class. And I watched that class and then I got a certificate. And that was, that's the end, that'll be the end of that. Like when we forget to put our blinker on and we go to traffic school. So it's, and it's unfortunate because people who know better, lawyers who know better are turning that into absolute false. They're making as much as they possibly can and they're speaking falsely about it. And it's really disappointing, but it's the ugly part of politics, that's for sure.
I understand, and I thank you for that, and that's
Absolutely.
makes it all the more important that people are making a big deal of it on the other side. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of people think that if I'm doing the work that I was sent here to do and making the reforms I was sent here to do, it's going to be hard to debate me on policies, like actual substantive policies. And so it's gotten really personal.
Thank you for being here today. And I've been trying to promote you and talk to you about when I speak with voters. And anyway, I spoke to a judge the other day, and I brought up the fact that the crime, this serious crime rates have been going down, quite dramatically. And he says, "Oh yeah, during COVID." But now this is a sitting judge that said this to me, Laura. So what should I say to that guy?
I'm sorry, Don. I didn't totally understand. He said violent crime is down because of COVID?
Yes.
Oh.
Or during COVID.
Oh no, oh my gosh, no. I mean it's across. It is well documented that unfortunately nationwide violent crime spiked horribly starting in March of 2020. Now, from a sociological standpoint, it's going to be studied for a long time, right? The corollary, the spike in violent crime and COVID. From what I can tell you, I think we suffered, especially here, because firearms are just far too plentiful. We are just awash in firearms here, and state law on that sure as heck doesn't help us. But it was very behavioral and psychological and emotional. We had a lot of violent crime that was clearly driven by the heightened anxiety and the isolation and the inability to get help. Okay, sorry. It said the host.
I did that.
No problem. So yes, but I'm thrilled that we're coming out of it. We've got a long ways to go. Don't get me wrong. I mean, in my office, these people are so dedicated and so hardworking and so very, very serious about their work.
Right.
I don't even know that they paused to congratulate themselves. I try to make them do it, but they don't. They just shift immediately into, the next big wave of the day, which is property the conditions of our neighborhoods, small businesses, our streets, our street corners, and they are working absolutely overtime.
But let me just interject one other point. Talking to voters, probably a nice response is just to listen and ignore it. If it's really off the, just if it's out of line, there's no reason to respond to it, and I really did. I just said, okay,
I hear you.
Corinne Cooper says, and this, you touched on this already, but I want to ask her a question directly. She says, I'm a retired attorney and I was deeply disappointed with your response concerning the diversion program you entered with the Arizona Bar. I've been involved with bar complaints in the past, and I know that the bar is very conservative and careful when imposing any form of discipline. You should acknowledge the errors that you made that led to your sanctions and give voters the assurance that you've learned from your ethical lapse.
Oh my God, I think I just did that. I mean, obviously I took it extremely seriously. Remember, I mean, you know better than anyone, Miss Cooper, that I had the absolute right to take it to a full-blown trial, a probable cause. I've never been here before, right? Okay, but it's like a probable cause hearing, and that would have allowed, Mr. Berkman a week-long, full-blown trial, talking about things from 2019, talking about one issue from 2019, but I chose my job and the county and the people over that because they said I could watch a video, which I took extremely seriously. I'm proud to say I did it on a Sunday because it's not my job. It should be on my personal time. And I've taken it very, very seriously. I can't begin to tell you how many people I've consulted with on how to watch every single word I say, because that's the standard I'm being held to. Part of it was quotes by journalists that were not even my own words, and an expectation that somehow I could do something about that. I mean, so that's the standard I'm trying to live up to. And again, I'll repeat that I'm a lifelong learner. I am by no means perfect. I mean, I'm Catholic. I'll be trying to live up to, Catholic guilt. I'm going to be trying to live up to some standard till my very last breath. And I'm honored to be here to have a chance to do it.
Thank you, Laura. Mike Humphrey asks, over the last 2 years, Pima County Attorney's Office waived over 400 domestic violence felony cases, some of which included firearms and other weapons. Could you please explain? And I think he means he waived them down to
Yeah, I have no idea what that means. I'd have to take a look at. I have no idea what data we're referencing. I haven't been able to. I don't have a way to look at your shared data right now. So, and I know, Mike, we talk, gosh, all the time about firearms, and I really appreciate your dedication to it. So if you would please send me whatever you're looking at, because otherwise I'm in a really unfair spot here, right? Because I have no idea what you're looking at.
Yeah, Mike Humphrey, if you want to send a link in the chat, I'll take a look at that.
It's from Judge Million's office.
Ah, okay.
Oh, okay. That's the city
domestic violence misdemeanor prosecutor for the city of Tucson.
Yeah, that's the city. That's not our jurisdiction. So I'll have to look at the data. It's possible that that's city data. So we'll have to take a look at it. Alex, would you send Mike, Mike, I mean, you email me like once a week. So yeah, just email me the data you have. And I know you're trying to get the straw purchase data out of federal court that I pointed you to as well. So we should do some trading on that. We obviously both care, couldn't possibly care more about firearms here in our community. Thanks, Mike.
Gail Kanamaras asks, do you have any concerns about officer-involved shootings? There seems to be too many unnecessary deaths by officers using guns instead of non-fatal means.
I have 3 points of concern. One is, again, the proliferation of firearms, right? We keep talking about this. I think the problem is when officers are encountering someone who's armed, they are so reduced in options, right? The whole situation is so heightened. So that's one concern. The second concern is mental illness. The trend that I'm sorry, I should back up a second. Every officer involved shooting comes to my office for a review about whether it was justified under the law. It's yet another extraordinary obligation on us. I assure you that the attorneys who look at these cases are anywhere from 20, 25, 30 years experienced. They go out to the scene in the hours after the incident personally to get a sense of measurements, distances, visual observation. It's quite an intensive review that goes on. I also want to add that I am so glad that we now have a Pima County critical incident review team, which means that, let's say TPD has an incident in Reed Park. A different agency will come in immediately and take over the investigation and the review so that TPD is not investigating itself. That's new. That's 2021. The sheriff started that, and it only took about 6 to 9 months to get it off the ground. And I think that that's given me a more neutral opportunity to review. But to the extent that we need every single officer and deputy from every department in our entire region to have that week-long critical incident training, CIT, crisis intervention training. There's so many acronyms. Crisis intervention training. It's a full week, 8 to 5, 40 hours of de-escalation training. It's incredible. You can imagine that because it takes an entire week, because it's such complex work, they don't all have it yet. And we lost like 2 years of it in COVID. You can't do it. You have to do it in person. It's now back up to 3 or 4 times a year. I teach personally at every single one of them. And there's a real difference. If you've had that training, we get better outcomes. We are able to talk people down. So I think it's a righteous concern. I share your concern. It's being handled as professionally as possible, but even one of these is one too many for the person who loses their life, for the family, and even when it's justified, for the officer who knows that they were there and what happened. I mean, this is not healthy for anyone, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. My follow-up on that is, there was a lot of promise and a lot of hope that having personal video devices on each officer would really help with reducing the rate at which officers, had to use their firearm in a situation, and it would make them more restrained. Has that promise been fulfilled? Have you found the personal video device to be helpful or illuminating in these critical incident reviews?
That's such a fascinating question. I will say that it's hard, of course, to observe or study that which doesn't occur. Meaning that if they exercise that restraint because they're on camera, it's kind of like the absence of an incident. That being said, I do think we can look at non-fatal incidents, and where shootings don't occur. I think we're going to have officers sort of self-identify how close something got, and then to learn from that. And I don't know that we're doing a good job of that yet. I will say that I used officer safety as a way to continue to push departments who weren't using video cameras yet to use them, because in such a situation, if you don't have it on camera, it's one story versus another story. And I will tell you that I think the footage has been the saving grace a number of times where the legal determination is that, yes, this was justified. And if we had not had the footage, it's hard to know how that investigation may have shook out. So I think in some cases it really protects people. I also think we've been able to identify other kinds of non-fatal behavior, excessive force, losing our temper, breaking, violation breaking. In other words, I think that quality has gone up because other behaviors are caught that we want to catch earlier, right? And I'll just add this one note. Derek Chauvin, who was convicted in the George Floyd case, had been in trouble for years with a lot of departments, right? And so what you hope is that with lesser behavior, you're catching less serious behavior earlier so that we don't end up at that devastating level. And I do think that's happening. I do think that's happening. Even in this impossible to recruit era for law enforcement, they are letting people go. Put it that way.
Yes, I own a handgun, one handgun, and I have decided I no longer want to keep that handgun. I'd like to have it destroyed. And to be honest with you, I was quite distressed when I called them. I live in Miranda. I called Miranda PD, and they said we can't do that. As I understand it, because of a lawsuit being against the city of Tucson.
Yeah.
I followed up with Pima County as well, with the sheriff's office, and I got not quite as an informant answer from them, but yes, on the same thing, that we can't do that. And I just find that's distressing. I don't know if you can enlighten me more about that.
Many years ago, Bill, it's extremely frustrating. It's not just you. Many years ago, Tucson City Councilman Steve Kozacek launched a buyback program, and then they were destroying guns. And the state of Arizona sued the city and won. And this is many, many years ago, so I'm going off of memory here a little bit. And we have some experts on the line. But it really chilled all future efforts to try to have gun destruction going down the road. The city actually has a little bit more power in the way they're set up, but the county is very much under the state. And the state has the power, it feels like on a whim to cut off our funding stream when they don't like what we're doing. And, I had the absolute pleasure to help draft legislation and an ordinance with Supervisor Rex Scott and State Representative Nancy Gutierrez, completely lawful, I would argue. And immediately state representatives started sending demand letters threatening to take action and come after us and sue us. I mean, just anything we do about firearms. It's quite frustrating.
So yeah, Bill Swan wants to know what guides you in your work every day.
Bill, it takes a village. I am incredibly lucky for who my family is. I have an absolute partner in my husband. I don't know why he puts up with all of this. And I do know why. In other words, like they are sacrificing as well. They are all giving public service, and this is true for every elected official's family. They're all in, frankly, whether they like it or not, and it's an extraordinary gift. I'll tell you that it's not a coincidence that my brother is the mental health sergeant who helped found the regional mental health team and was there at the birth of the CRC. We are both the absolute product of our superhero mother. She raised us since the age of 4 and 6. She was a child psychologist, and we are everything in honor to her. What inspires me are the near 380 employees in the building who could have left, and who could leave at any moment and double and sometimes even triple their salary by doing less work and less hours and less stress in the private sector, but they stay for you. They are incredibly motivating. And then last but not least, it's doing the right thing. You have all seen me take very serious hits for making unpopular decisions that maybe surprised the base. And it's because I am not able to be influenced. I have a team of legal experts who are extraordinarily brilliant. And based on facts and circumstances, we get to the decision of what the law allows on how to do the right thing, no matter how hard it hurts. And then that's what we teach all these young attorneys, so that your future prosecutors and civil litigators and judges, this is the future bench, right?
Yeah.
They are being taught to do the right thing by mentors that we have carefully chosen to supervise them. And what an absolute honor to be in this space at the most difficult of times and the best of times.
Thank you,
so-
Laura. That was great. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay.
So Lil Deshpande wants to know how you will be addressing the Arizona Supreme Court decision on the 1864 abortion ban.
Well, we are heavily at work. You know, the good news is that we've got protection. We feel really good about the reproductive health care being able to stay available until June 8. So we don't have to, you know, move overnight or move with snap decisions. So we've got till June 8. So it's, you know, we're undertaking a big look at what we want to do back in the trial court, whether we're going to enter into a full-blown evidentiary hearing, calling witnesses, et cetera. So that what I can assure you is that you have the kind of leadership in me that when hit with an issue of statewide importance affecting all pregnant people statewide, I am not one that's just going to say, dive right in and have the audacity to think that I know what's best. I'm going to have the personal skills and interpersonal communication skills to pull in the brightest across the nation who do it pro bono as dedicated service to this cause and issue, so that we have the very smartest, sharpest strategy possible.
Okay, so no hands up. Mike, any more questions in the chat?
Susie Anderson would like to know more about diversion programs that you have for those who commit domestic violence.
Diversion programs for domestic violence. I'm going to have to, who can I get the name? Oh, Susie.
Yes, Susie Anderson.
Susie, I'm going to have to check in with my domestic violence chief on that. I know that if they are in a first-time offender status, and certain conditions are met, you know, no firearms present, et cetera, they may be able to engage in diversion, but I think it's much more treatment-based. There's very specific treatment regimens that are very different on domestic violence cases than they look like for the other treatment courts. And we partner with local experts on how to go about the root causes of domestic violence and how to avoid recidivism, as we were talking about before. You know, healthy communication, healthy families. But Susie, I'll look into that. If you, Alex, would you flip Susie my email as well? I'm going to talk to my chief about that.
The types of things you're implementing, like the decriminalizing things and sort of to respond more humanely. do you know of other cities that have implemented similar changes that to you? How did it work? Did it work for them? Thank you.
Well, Andrea, that is a really important question, and I should warn everyone that I'm seeing the clock and I'm seeing that I gotta clock back in at work. So I just want to be real careful. But Andrea, what a good question. You know, and an opportunity for me to be very humble and very grateful that our sister cities, frankly, across the nation started implementing these reforms in 2015, 2016. There was literally a manual and a Bible, you know, by the time I came around, so that I could study these very programs and take a look at what would work for us and what might not. Not everything works across the nation, right? And that's why I really look to places that share a lot of demographics in common with us, and to look at what's working. And so everything, you know, everything we're building has already succeeded elsewhere. And restorative justice is a huge one, right? It's all over the nation. The recidivism rate is just phenomenal. People tend to not ever enter the system again when they go through restorative justice, because it's so heartfelt and so meaningful. And obviously, with a huge note of gratitude to our tribal brothers and sisters at Pascua and Tohono, who both helped take a look at how we would launch it, because they've been using those practices since time immemorial. So yes, so it's one good thing about kind of being behind the wave, is that when you want to be data driven, we have rich data across the nation on all of these policies that we're using. And our website, the office website's pretty rich with that too, if you want to go noodling around the library over there.
Another great program. Let's give Laura a big thank you for being with us today as she gets back to the office and drive safely.
Great to see everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, Laura.
Thank
Great.
you.
Hey everybody, it's Senator Mark Kelly. As all of you know, Arizona Democrats have had a lot of important wins over the last few years. We won 2 U.S. Senate races, and we delivered Arizona's electoral votes to President Biden and Vice President Harris. We elected Governor Katie Hobbs, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, and Attorney General Chris Mays. Now, those elections were close, and our victories mattered. Arizona Democrats from the federal to the local level have delivered real results for our state on critical issues like combating climate change, lowering prescription drug costs, protecting the right to vote, and preventing more restrictions on abortion access. The Democrats of Greater Tucson offers the opportunity to hear from elected officials and candidates about that important work and the issues that matter to them. That information will be invaluable as Arizonans head to the polls. So this election cycle, whether you're signing up to knock doors, make phone calls, or joining the Democrats of Greater Tucson to hear from and speak to Democrats in our area, please know that your voice matters and we need you on this team. Thank you.